The community of Jagersfontein in the Free State says they will forever be haunted by the destruction of houses and infrastructure in the area caused by the collapse of a mine dam wall on the 11th of September last year.
So if you remember, 3 people were killed and 1 person is still missing, and many residents had their lives turned upside down and they've not recovered from that ordeal.
Government says the current legal disputes by some residents against the mining company have been hindering the progress of building houses for the affected families. The Deputy Minister of Cooperative Governance Parks Tau recently visited the mining town.
The events of September 11th, 2022 will forever be etched in these residents' minds. That fateful Sunday morning, residents woke up to a horror. They had to flee to save their lives after a mine dam burst and sludge flooded the town, causing damage to infrastructure and houses. While some managed to salvage their meager belongings, others were counting their losses. Over 180 people were displaced. Heart-wrenching, tear-jerking, and extremely painful are some of the phrases that were used to describe scenes that transpired that day.
She says, "We are always scared. We don't know even when we are sleeping far away from us, but it is affecting us bad because when you wake up in the middle of the night, when you hear a sound, you are suddenly think you are back in that place."
I don't have a place right now. I can say it's only the building, but thing inside, there's nothing inside because in our street, other places, there's no houses because 9 of them are now flooded and they are furnitures. There's no furnitures.
The sludge that swept through parts of the area has settled, but residents are still facing a long journey to work through their trauma. Some had to rebuild their lives. The work to restore the livelihoods of those affected is far from complete. At the time, mine management revealed that it has set aside 20 million rand to assist the affected residents. Government say despite its intention to have the matter settled out of court, the case might be taken further.
We are comfortable that the project is currently underway and that the houses are being redeveloped, particularly for those who have said that they are prepared to occupy the houses. There's still a significant number of people, the majority, that have said they are not ready yet to occupy the houses. They do require some issues to be resolved. They've got legal representatives. We've engaged with their lawyers. We've engaged with the community leaders again today. And I'm comfortable that from today's discussion, there is a way forward.
Attempts have been made to boost the town's economy after the humanitarian disaster that left many in the community in dire straits. Only 3 houses have been built so far, this despite the October deadline looming. Government programs have been set up to assist with revitalizing the economy of the area.
We want to see local economic activity so that we don't put people in houses, but there's no local economic activity to benefit from. So he will be driving that. The Premier has already identified other projects like the solar project that can provide 6,000 jobs, the hemp farming. So there are a number of initiatives that will come, and that's the reason we had a meeting this afternoon with business people who have also committed to come to this area and invest.
The Kopano municipality plans to commemorate the 1-year anniversary of the disaster.
The affected households or families, they are using 3 different firms. Now all of these firms, they are using different strategies towards this particular issue of a disaster. But the major conflict now is that the mining boss's legal firm, which is called Tabek, is refusing to have interactions with the legal side of families. That might be on the basis that they are using different strategies and which might delay this issue to settle out of court.
Unhappy residents previously marched to the mining company, Jagersfontein Developments, demanding that the mine takes responsibility for the disaster. Residents are also furious that some of the sludge and mud that spread across the area after the mine dam wall burst have been removed and dumped into the town's historic pit. Meanwhile, the remains of 50-year-old Mantele Mukhadi, presumed killed in the disaster, has still not been found. Refilo Mekwa, SABC News, Jagersfontein.
And of course, today we look back on the events that took place on this day last year at the Jagersfontein mine in the Free State. And this is where that tailing dam at the Jagersfontein mine burst its wall, sending a torrent of toxic mine waste down the slope into the settlement of Charlesville and Itumeleng. And 2 people died, 2 are still missing, 164 houses partially destroyed, while others were completely destroyed. You saw there in the report what some of the latest developments have been. So today, the Benchmarks Foundation will be launching a report which tracks the developments that have taken place around the area post the catastrophe. Benchmarks Foundation researcher Dr. Ntebo Maputi joins us virtually now to reflect on the Jagersfontein disaster that took place last year. Dr. Maputi, thanks for your time. Welcome to Morning Live.
Thank you, Sakina, for having me.
Dr. Maputi, if we could just get straight into it with regard to accountability. A year on, we know that both the mining company and government had been repeatedly warned of this impending danger. So as we sit here today, has there been any real accountability for that disaster?
Not at all. There was completely lack of accountability and oversight. So I will go back to 2007, for example. The Department of Mineral Resources wanted to give the mining license to the community trust, but DBS, which at the time owned the mine, was against that and took the department to court. So DBS won that case. And so after that, the department claimed that it couldn't inspect the tailings due to the outcome of the court case. So, and again, the department said that this is not the mine that was operating at the time of the disaster, the Jagersfontein Pty Limited. So, since it's not considered to be a mine, then it means it doesn't fall under the ambit of the Mine Health and Safety Act of 1996. And there's also the issue of the Department of Water and Sanitation, which suspended the license of the mine because the mine was not complying with its requirements. So they later reinstated the license on condition that the mine should not overload the dam with water, which is exactly what the mine did. So the mine should have had a safety permit, and which they didn't have. So this was, there was completely lack of accountability and oversight. And moving on to 2023, progress has been extremely slow. As the report states, the mining company donated only 20 million, and then the other 50 million came from the mining council. But that is not enough, given the damage. I mean, you have 164 houses that were swept away, livestock, furniture, cars. You know, I can't even begin to talk about the environmental damage, contamination of streams and soil. So far, there are few houses that have been built, and we have been in and out of Jagersfontein and noticed that the houses are much smaller than the initial houses that the victims owned. So this is really unfair. And also, we did interview subcontractors, local subcontractors who are building some of the houses, and they complained that they are not getting enough support from the mine. So, and then we move on to, the community of Charlesville, which was affected, which was one of the 2 townships affected by the disaster. They are still getting water from the Zozo tanks, and the water pipes have not been fixed at this stage. So there's high level of poverty and unemployment. Over 70% of residents are unemployed, which means they can't pay rates. And also the municipality has complained that it owes Bloemfontein Water about 600 million. So it's a town on its knees, honestly, and because the mayor's office also complained about the fact that HIV is out of control, child molestation, child pregnancies, so all sorts of social ills you can think of. So it's a town on its knees.
And this is really heartbreaking to listen to because, these people had their lives devastated. And as you'd indicated, the company had said they would give 20 million, a further 50 million, as you said, Dr. Maputi, was donated by the Council for the Minerals Council of South Africa. That 70 million that was promised, was all of it collected, and how was it used, given that the community still is going through all of these social ills? We only have a minute, Dr. Maputi, so if you would just keep it succinct for us, please.
Okay. As far as we know, only the community members told us that only 100,000 has been used. So nothing much has been done. And at Benchmarks, we are really concerned that the mine is currently dumping the tailings in a historic pit where mining started in the 1800s. So this is the pit that the community members were hoping would be turned into a heritage site. It is one of the deepest hand excavated holes in the world. So community members were really hoping that it would be turned into a heritage site, but that's not going to happen, obviously. We are also concerned about the fact that these houses are being built in the same area where the disaster happened. This is part of apartheid special planning where, black communities, black townships were placed on the wrong side of toxic waste and tailings. So this is, we are concerned, and I feel like they should have been resettled to a much safer area. And also at Benchmarks, we will be doing, in the next couple of days, we will start a skills and infrastructure audit with the hope that we want to assist community members to start cooperatives and business units.
We'll leave it there. Dr. Ntebo Maputi, really is eye-watering, what you're telling us right now. But thanks so much. Benchmarks Foundation researcher Dr. Ntebo Maputi discussing developments pertaining to the Jagersfontein Foundation a year after the disaster that took place in September last year.